Testing, testing. Okay. Just want to make sure that my microphone works. Appears to be. Testing, testing. Okay. You have to move a little closer. Well, it's 2 p.m., and so I'm going to go ahead and start the live stream. Welcome to my second live stream. I had one about a month ago or so, and would like to have one of these every month for a while. But before we really get too far into this, I just would like to take a moment or so and do a brief meditation, bring everybody into the present moment. Welcome, Brenda. Can you hear me okay? Good. Do you happen to have any questions today regarding suffering, whether it's anything that I've covered thus far in my videos or a topic I have yet to cover or something else altogether? Well, while she comes up with a question, we'll let everybody know that we have just begun the section on heal and honor the physical body. We just finished up heal and honor the psychological mind. The next section after this, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 subsections within this one that we're going to cover regarding the body. And then we'll be moving on to the natural world. There'll be a few topics there. And then finally, we'll be coming to what I call the fundamental societal shifts that need to change in a very seismic way, but it's probably going to take some time before suffering collectively as a species lessens dramatically. And then there'll be some final contemplations, and then there'll be an epilogue, which will kind of complete the whole series. So probably looking at maybe sometime July or August, and all of these videos for this particular series will be wrapped up. But Brenda does have a question. She says, with all of the chemicals that have been used over the years and the chemtrails being spread in the sky, how can we have chemical-free nutrition? Well, I think what will probably eventually become more wide scale than it is now is indoor farming. And I've seen some videos of people that have people or groups that have bought old warehouses, or they're putting up new buildings altogether, and we're growing food indoors where the climate can obviously be controlled. There wouldn't be, or there would be probably a lot less pest problems. So you wouldn't have to spray everything with pesticides or herbicides or even fungicides that you otherwise have to right now out in the open. But when you're talking about trying to feed 8.2 billion people now, that's talking about a tremendous amount of indoor space that would be needed to do that, as compared to the total number of acreage that we have out in the open right now. Of course, that does present some issues and some problems, I would imagine, because there are certain crops that may not do very well at all indoors, no matter what they try. But these are things I think that people who are very interested in these fields of food production will be solving perhaps in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And, there's also the feasibility of it, the costs to upstart something like that. And then, of course, you're having to deal with the, big farm, these big conglomerates and businesses and corporations that own tremendous amount of land, tremendous amount of infrastructure, and have tremendous influence in the marketplace. So you'll also be combating that as well. So I do know that some of this is going on in some of your larger cities. And definitely there's people even in smaller communities, even in rural settings, that have their own greenhouses. The other challenge there is that learning how to grow that food in an indoor situation, or growing our own food, even if it's just in the yard or at our home or even in our own greenhouse, that's just something that isn't taught in school anymore. And so it would have to be coming from parents, and it would have to be coming from communities that children and the youth of today learn as they grow to be really interested in doing that for themselves or on a much larger scale in a community project to help feed the community. So, all these things could very well be changing very slowly. Um, I don't know if it would take something, drastic in the conventional way of growing food that then would really be a catalyst towards um, more individuals and more groups getting together to produce food that is chemically free and is natural and is affordable. That has to be the other thing, and readily accessible. So to the most people. And that's where big city environments work really well because there's obviously a lot more people that could buy the food, get the food, as opposed to a rural setting. But to me, I think that's really the only way because I don't think we're going to be changing anything that we put into the sky. Um, and it seems like nowadays, with the new administration here in the United States, uh, we're not necessarily totally abandoning green ideals to help reduce the amount of chemicals and everything else that we put in the atmosphere. But it seems as if the interest is going back to the old ways of coal production for electricity and um, more oil drilling and so forth for petroleum and things like that, which again, all those byproducts just end up going right back into the atmosphere and just kind of make things worse. But so I think it's just going to have to be, it'll be kind of an underground movement for a while, I think, until it becomes much more acceptable, much more available, and can really give conventional farming a run for its money. But it'll take time. We just need more people interested in it, I think. Any additional questions regarding suffering? Whether, again, it's something that you experience, something maybe that I've covered that you don't maybe quite understand, um, topic that I have yet to cover that you would like to have covered, perhaps. Um, or maybe I did cover it at some point. There's a lot of videos, obviously, and I can't expect everybody to look at all the videos. We've done over 800 of them so far. It takes a long time to get through the material if you just freshly join, but um, so yeah, open to any questions. Any other questions? Well, maybe what I will ask is what seems to be the greatest challenge for viewers out there with their own suffering, whether you're actually on your own resolution journey or just things that you notice, your awareness of the suffering that you do experience, what seems to be sort of your greatest challenges in overcoming. I noticed in the beginning there was a lag time in the notice for this program. I'm not sure exactly how that works. I sort of started the whole thing and was just kind of sitting in waiting mode at about 1:30 today. Um, so I'm not sure what is meant by the lag time on that or in the notice for the program. I did send out a video message that got posted on noon Tuesday, if I remember. And um, so that video was available. I didn't post any notices. I didn't make any other because the notices the last time around just didn't seem to be getting to everybody. It was kind of a hit and miss. And so I figured at least with the video, people who are getting notifications of new videos each day that are posted, they would at least get the video for this live stream. So I kind of left it at that, but I put the live stream sort of together and just kind of put it on hold for a 2 o'clock start. So I don't know if that maybe is part of the lag time in the notice of the program. My suffering seems to be saying no to sweets, ongoing yes for days and no for weeks. Seesaw. Well, sweets can be very powerful and alluring. A lot of people have an affinity for sweets. I I freely admit sometimes I go on little binges as well too, where it just kind of feels good to have some sweets every now and again. But I also realize sort of I wouldn't say necessarily rabbit hole, but you can become easily addicted to sweets and making it more of an everyday, multiple times a day habit. Those of us of the older generations remember back when we were younger, where sweets were a treat that would happen maybe once a week, Friday night or Saturday night or something after dinner, or ice cream or whatever. Nowadays, with all of the packaged items in the stores, a lot of it with a tremendous amount of sugar, it's now sort of an every meal occurrence for a lot of people. And I think part of that is we get hooked on the sugar because it is, in a sense, it's a pain reliever. And so whether we're experiencing physical pain and or psychological pain, sweets will the sugar in the sweets will activate the body's reward pathways. You get dopamine releases, you get those feel good sensations throughout the body. And in a sense, it's just they're little bits and pieces of pain reliever. And then when you add something like chocolate and sugar together, then there's, from what I understand, there's chemical properties within chocolate itself that sort of helps your body produce kind of its own morphine. So in a way, you're getting the sugar and the chocolate in itself, and you're getting sort of that double whammy effect of pain reliever. And so for a lot of people with unresolved psychological issues, they will grab for things that are sweet to help soothe the psychological pain. And then, of course, people with physical issues will do the same because it helps to provide that temporary relief. And again, it's only temporary. So when that wears off, we feel like we need more chocolate, more sugar, more whatever. And then, of course, there are those of us, and I would probably put myself in that boat, that knows consciously why I'm craving sugar or chocolate or whatever it may be, that there's unresolved issues that are probably causing this. But you also have to remember, too, that sometimes the body may need a little extra sugar because, one, maybe you're not getting enough simple carbohydrates, which get converted to sugar very easily. And the body needs a certain amount of glucose or sugar for energy. So if we're constantly pumping out a lot of energy, maybe we're working out, maybe we're doing a lot of gardening work or working around the house, or maybe we're in a job that requires a lot of physical labor. We're going to need certain amounts of energy and glucose and whatnot to meet those energy demands for the muscles, so they don't get super tired and fatigued, and then we get tired and fatigued. Where the issue comes in is for those of us that have a relatively sedentary lifestyle, if you will. We sit at a desk in an office most of the time, or on the weekends we're sitting at home watching TV or those kind of things, and we're consuming chocolate, sugar, whatever, and we're not using the energy. So you're building this up. Your body has to get rid of this somehow. And so that becomes a challenge. And if you're not using that energy, it will eventually store it as fat. And so people who are sedentary sort of get on this negative feedback loop if they're consuming a lot of sugar or chocolate and that, and they're not exercising, they're not getting it moving, they're not being very physical to burn all that off. And so then it's just going to collect. and lead to a host of other issues, um, and even not necessarily issues with weight gain, but issues with diabetes, because it taxes the pancreas, the amounts of sugar that we have. It has to deal with that, and ever more sugar is more and more problem to deal with, to a point where you end up with things like insulin resistance, and then you're cascading towards metabolic syndrome, and then it's just really nasty from there. Um, but so sometimes those on again, off again urges for sweets is because um, our body just sometimes might need a little extra just to kind of get us going in the day, but also be mindful of the fact that, okay, what maybe psychologically and or physically is perhaps compelling me to want to have that sugar for that pain relief. And that could be something that we can contemplate on in the moment once we kind of get that craving that, we find ourselves reaching for the cookie jar, we find ourselves reaching for whatever that we normally don't. And maybe that's just an opportunity to be mindful of, okay, what within me is compelling me to grab for that. And so in a way, those kind of cravings it can help sharpen our awareness to why we have those certain cravings, or cravings for anything else for that matter, not necessarily sweets. I see we have another viewer. Oh, what is an example of a simple carbohydrate? Simple carbohydrate would be something like rice, potatoes. Those things are converted to sugar very easily. You could even think, although it's not really a food, but alcohol could be a simple carbohydrate because it gets converted very quickly to sugar. Those are potatoes and rice; those kind of things are probably your biggest simple carbohydrates that the body converts to sugar. Um, and so, even to some extent, as I had said, alcohol will turn into sugar, and that can also be part of why people crave alcohol too, not necessarily for the buzz effect. In a way, that's probably the primary reason, but also because it converts into sugar very easily. So we're getting those rush of endorphins from the processing of the alcohol in the liver and converting it over to glucose. Okay, we're about halfway through the anticipated time frame that I had for this particular live chat. So, are there any more questions regarding suffering, or topics regarding suffering? What has been the most interesting topic of suffering that I have covered, and why? What made it interesting? What perhaps did you learn the most from that particular segment or series or topic within the videos that I've done thus far, or that you have actually watched? Be curious to know. Maybe there was something that was revelatory to yourself, that kind of an aha moment, that, oh, that kind of thing. Has there been anything like that that has happened? And if you remember what the topic was. Well, I appreciate you watching from the beginning, and I wouldn't expect anybody to remember all of them. Heck, I don't even necessarily remember all of them. I've got a general outline from which I can reference, but specific videos, um, I don't have, that's 800 plus videos to try and remember. But in a way, a lot of them, I would have to say all of them have been revelatory in some fashion to my own suffering. And that's why I've included them in this production. And it's interesting how one sort of leads to the next, or one topic dovetails into the next. And even in putting the material together, there were some topics that sort of interrelated to other topics, but they were going to be happening later in the book, which is what I was trying to put together here from the very beginning, was a book. And so I had to decide, okay, well, does it fit over here better, or does it fit over here better? And so there's been a lot of going back and forth. And I've kind of put things in places where I hope that they fit the best for the topic or the subject at hand. And the just even going through the whole process of putting the material together, it took on the order of about 7 years to put all the information together from various sources. from my own experiences, my own meditations in the middle of the night, and some insights that would come through. And so I'd just kind of be scribbling them down in the middle of the night. That then became an offering, a paragraph or so of information, something to um, hopefully get people to contemplate on their own, to meditate perhaps, to see how does this relate to me in my life, in my situation, my suffering, and a lot of it is presented to get people to think, because I think some of the stuff that I do present is in a different context than normal. It may be a subject like fear or even anger, but I'm looking at it from sort of a different perspective than the norm or what most people talk about when they talk about those particular subjects, so that everybody out there can have an opportunity to understand more, I think, when things are presented in multiple different ways on the same subject. As long as there's really not conflicting information, though, if one person says this and another person says something the total opposite, that's going to create confusion. So if they're along pretty much the same lines, then sometimes restating something in a slightly different way, coming from a slightly different angle, will help people to understand it more. And so I think in what I've presented is looking at the conventional way of subjects and topics, and then looking at them from a slightly different angle, I think can help people understand it even better. Because sometimes, um, as we all know, not everybody thinks exactly alike, thinks the same through the same processes, um, the same deductions, the same reasoning, the same experiences, anything like that. So, um, having things presented in different ways on the same subject can be very helpful to a lot of people, and hopefully I've been able to do that in these videos, because I strive for being original, not sounding like everybody else out there, the self-help people, the the gurus, whatever you want to call them. And hopefully I've done that. And I would imagine too, at some points I've made things maybe perhaps more complicated, but that's okay too. I think if you present something with a little bit of complexity to it, maybe multi-layered in a way, people, it will help them to think about and come about their own answers to that particular suffering topic or question. And they end up with the answer that's right for them, not necessarily a one size fits all answer for everybody, because that just doesn't happen. And certainly, a lot of the elements in here that I write about and put into video form, a lot of people don't experience or aren't aware that they're experiencing, or maybe they experience things a different way. That's the wonder about fields of psychology. There may be some standard themes in there, but everybody experiences things differently. So we can't shoehorn people into that one size fits all approach, because it just doesn't work. And I think part of that too is maybe what prevents people from venturing into their own resolution journeys, is because we really want to know for certain, and there's no certainties in life other than death and taxes, of course. So we have to see what fits for us, and if it doesn't fit, If it fits today, it may not fit tomorrow. Or if it doesn't fit today, maybe it'll fit tomorrow and it'll be just right for what we need. But, planting seeds, as long as people water them and nurture them, you know, will grow, will develop, and hopefully will suffer less. Got about 15 minutes left in this live stream. And if there's any other questions out of anything that I've presented today or anything that I've presented video wise, um, now's the time to ask, or just even curiosities about suffering. Maybe not necessarily a personal experience, but just curiosities. Maybe curious about other people and how they deal with suffering, or how they don't deal with suffering, and why they don't deal with suffering. Um, well, thank you for being on this live stream. Now, when you say different chats, what specifically do you mean by different chats? Different than just the Q&A? Ah, yes. Other people in the room. Yes, so would I. But I do understand that sometimes Saturday afternoons, people are with their family, with their friends, running around doing all the errands that they can't do during the week because they're working. So I understand that that kind of a time is challenging for perhaps some people. Um, but I chose this time so that I could make sure that the people on the West Coast, since I'm in Eastern time, make sure people on the West Coast had an opportunity to be awake and join live from where they're at. So it's closing in probably on noon out there, as well as maybe hopefully not too late for the people that might be over in Europe that might be interested in my videos. So I figured that would be kind of a happy medium time to get the most people that could attend that could attend live. Unfortunately, that leaves the folks out on the other side of the planet that's now in the middle of the night, but I probably don't have too many people. I do, I think, have a couple from India, so that might be a challenge for them to be up super early in the morning or really late at night to attend this. But um, can't. I'm not able to please everybody all the time. But but it does show that I have another viewer here in the room. Would you care to say hello? Not putting you on the spotlight or anything, but be nice to know. Ah, I do recognize that name. Hello. Is it what is it? Perry? Pari? And can I ask where you are from? From Detroit. Okay. Living currently in LA. All right. Well, it's good that you could make it this afternoon. Do you happen to have any particular questions that you would like to ask regarding suffering, whether it's been anything that I've presented thus far or a topic perhaps that I have yet to cover? Thank you. Thank you. I try to I try to not sound like everybody else when it comes to suffering because it's very easy to be sort of a repeater, if you will, and that's unoriginal. And sometimes I come up with just some interesting insights that come to me that I don't know where they necessarily come from. And then it turns into an offering that I then put together and put into the presentations that I have done. And as I was explaining a little bit earlier in this video, um, this this whole project here has been about 10 years in the making, about 7 years worth of just collecting offerings, collecting insights that come to me again in the middle of the night. Sometimes I'll just sort of wake up, um, get into a little bit of a meditation, and these things would start coming in, these these ideas and these concepts, and then I would build upon them. And a lot of it too is just in dealing with my own issues of suffering at the time that I was putting most all of this information together. There was quite a stressful period for a number of years, a lot of dynamics going on in my life that um, I guess you could say I was looking for answers. And that's the insights that came through were were convincing me that really the answers to all to our individual suffering is really found from within. We just all need to tune into it, whether it is through quiet contemplation, through deep meditation. Um, I think that we can read a lot, we can watch a lot out there to get ideas that then sort of percolate into the subconscious mind. And if we allow it to come forward, pay attention to it, be aware of it, and honor it, then it may be the right answers for us in helping us with, one or more topics of suffering. And so I guess that's the unique part of it. There is that there's been a lot of personal insights that have gone into a lot of the offerings that I've provided. And you could say maybe in some respects, everything that I've presented thus far has been somewhat autobiographical, I guess you could say, but not necessarily. I think, too, I've included some things in here um, that are insights, but not necessarily from a personal nature, just seeing aspects about suffering in different ways than are being presented that I think have value to an audience that is either interested in reducing or eliminating their suffering or is interested in helping others if they're in a profession that helps others. Um, but again, everything boils down to individual journey. We're all on individual journeys in this life. Our life purposes have become to heal the pain and trauma of our ancestors that have been passed down from generation to generation, that each subsequent generation has either ignored, uh, didn't know how to deal with it, uh, was uneducated. There wasn't any knowledge generally about how to eliminate it. But then I think, too, perhaps nowadays we may suffer a little bit differently than our ancestors did back then. I don't really know. Obviously, I wasn't alive then, but um, I think as humans evolve, our suffering evolves as well. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, especially because nowadays it's the preferred method to avoid suffering. Whatever we can, whatever distraction that we can to avoid our suffering, we all jump on it. It's not necessarily a fun subject to have to tackle, but we carry it forward generation after generation. It's like everything. It seems like everything else that we humans do. We look for the immediate short-term advantage in everything now, and we'll put off the long-term problems for another generation to have to deal with. And that's essentially what we do with suffering. Um, it's unfortunate. Maybe that's part of the human condition, but I think we can change that as a species. And whether we actually do that or not, it's hard for me to say because it took us a long time as a species to get where we are. It will take a long time for us as a species to make that change effective, in really to help save ourselves from ourselves. Um, so, because it really is up to us individually and collectively. And, but we have to sort of see it in that light. We can't believe that our suffering is for somebody else to rectify for us, to resolve for us, because that just is not how it works. But I'm grateful for the people that attend to these videos, that watch these videos, and I hope that everybody gets as much out of them as I put into them, insofar as sharing these perspectives and insights. And I hope that these will, even help subsequent generations down the line. Who knows? We shall, I guess, some of us will see. Maybe not all of us, but some of us will see. Are there any other suffering related questions that anybody would like to ask? Because if not, I may go ahead and close this down. I was planning on about an hour or so. Let's see, I'm tired of blaming other people for my own suffering. However, I find it too easy to berate myself, self-loathing issues. I would like to be on my own side more often, more loving and embracing. Well, I guess the first question to ask is, why do you feel that you have to berate yourself? Obviously, you see that there is no value in blaming others for your suffering. Um, and I guess maybe the question is, do you berate yourself because you know better about suffering, but yet you still blame people for your suffering? Or do you berate yourself because you don't know or understand? Is there something that's blocking you from knowing that before you have the reactivity, before you have the feelings of wanting to blame others or blame yourself? Um, and in a way, maybe the question is, blaming other people for your own suffering is a projection of your own blaming of yourself for not resolving your own suffering. Perhaps that could be a way of looking at it. And I do resonate with you because to some extent I also have some self-loathing issues, knowing that doing things certain ways, having certain beliefs, having certain thoughts, I know is not healthy. I know that I make mistakes and errors, and yet sometimes I do get on myself for that, and I do berate myself. And in some respects, there's some self-loathing going on. It's like in a way, it's sort of the parent within you, the adult within you, that is yelling at the inner child, saying, that what you are thinking, what you are doing is not healthy, is not correct, is only hurting you and potentially hurting others. You know that already. So why do you continue to do it? It could be thought of that way as well. Um, and the self-embracing is also the self-accepting that you aren't perfect. Very few of us. I don't think anybody is really perfect. Even some of the real spiritualists out there are not perfect. Everybody has their own little flaws. Everybody has their own little issues that have yet to be resolved. Resolution is always an ongoing journey. It's, in my opinion, it's never ending. It does not stop. Magically, one day you just don't wake up and all of your problems, all of your issues, all of your suffering is totally gone. It's very rare that that ever happens. So by accepting ourselves for who we are and what we have become can be a big step towards that self-embracing, because as I have presented in my videos here before, it's often the child within that's the one that's crying out for help, the one that was injured, wounded, if you will, psychologically, if not physically, as a child, in different events and incidences that may have happened. And when we don't resolve our issues in the moment, because most of us are unable to, we don't have the cognitive capacity or the comprehension to understand why we are suffering as children, then we're forced not necessarily forced, but we just grow into adulthood. And so we adopt adulthood responsibilities, and we got to do this and we have to do that, and all these obligations and commitments. And so we lose that childhood, that inner child that is still suffering. And so every now and again, the little child is going to raise its hand. I'm still suffering here. And so in a way, that's helping us to become aware of it so we can pay attention that there's still suffering to be resolved, because really the inner child is looking for love, and is looking to be loved, because that child, as the child grew up through adolescence and in adulthood, didn't feel all the loving that perhaps they needed or wanted from parents, from family members, from friends, from peers. And so in a way, the child is missing us, and would like us to come back to it, to nurture the child, help the child heal, so that the inner child does not sort of sabotage us with its cries for help, which is, in a sense, most of how we project our suffering onto others. And so maybe those are some areas to perhaps look into. And been looking for someone else to fix me, and now realize I've been looking in the wrong direction. Learning slowly. I like your concept of perpetual meditation. Yes, I do remember that comment that you had made on that particular video. And I think that's probably been one of my more, I don't know, deeper insights, is that I think everybody, to some extent, would like to not only live in outer peace, but also live in inner peace. And meditation, to some extent, kind of helps us get there. But for most of us, the concept is we sit on a cushion for a half hour, 45 minutes in a silent room, you know, back up straight, eyes closed, pay attention in a sense to the emotions, the thoughts that are arising. Some of us may try to control them because maybe they're unwanted thoughts or disturbing thoughts or disturbing emotions. Others of us simply observe the thoughts that they come in. But the idea of perpetual meditation is sort of the quintessential mindfulness, being mindful of the present moment and everything that is happening in the present moment in and around us. The challenge is most of us have to interact with others. Most of us have jobs to perform. Most of us have tasks and whatnot to complete each and every day, whether it is at work or whether it's with family, of a personal nature, whatever. We're so wrapped up in all these external uh, tasks, if you will, that we lose ourselves. And then when we're not into those particular tasks, we're into the whole field of distraction after that. And I wouldn't consider meditation a distraction at all, unless what we're trying to do is to forcefully push away those disturbing thoughts or the thoughts that come into mind, or where I'm in meditation and I shouldn't feel anxious and I shouldn't feel this and I shouldn't think that and I shouldn't think this. When we're doing that, we're still trying to distract ourselves because we want that peace as our distraction when it's really not accomplishable, because again we have those thoughts and feelings that arise that we're constantly fighting against. So I think the concept of a perpetual meditation is somewhat achievable through our own resolutions. The further along we get in our resolution process of our suffering, the less and less the mind tends to focus on the past or the future. So we can stay in the present moment. We can stay in the present moment more often. And as that builds and as that grows, because we continue to do more resolution, then perhaps we can reach that state where we are, in a sense, in a perpetual meditation, where we don't have internal and external distractions that take our mind away from the present moment. And so I think that is achievable. It's just, it takes some work. It does take some work. It's not something that's going to be instantaneous. And but I think that's pretty much the concept behind all of that. And it's something that I sort of, you know, I certainly would like to be able to do, but right now it's just something I'm working on. That's really all I can all I can kind of say about that is it's something I'm working on, just like everything else that I present is all. We're always a work in progress. Nobody's ever 100% there, wherever there is. Whether it's some sort of idea of enlightenment, that's really what you want in life. You know, each of us can have our own little moments of enlightenment. It doesn't necessarily, I don't think, have to be a continual state, because I don't think psychologically we're designed for that at this point in human evolution. Any other questions? We've run over a little bit of time, but that's okay. I enjoy speaking, and I hope that the people that are on also are receiving some good insights from mostly me talking, I guess. And in your question about I've been looking for someone else to fix me. That's not to say that looking for someone else to maybe help guide me, um, I think that could be helpful. But the important thing is that nobody is really in charge of anybody else as far as fixing them goes. As you say, you've been looking in the wrong direction. We need to fix ourselves. But I don't think that there is any harm necessarily in working with someone who can help bring those insights out within you, not necessarily fix you, not necessarily tell you that what you're doing is right or wrong, or that you should be doing this, you should be doing that, but that helps you to perhaps see your suffering in slightly different ways than you may currently view it. And I think in the offerings that I present in all of these videos is hopefully that kind of insight producing. Because again, kind of coming full circle, I hope I do bring out sort of a unique approach to all of the topics and subjects that I present insofar as suffering, so that you're not hearing the same messages over and over constantly, that you're hearing something a little bit different from a little different angle that perhaps provides that little spark, that little aha moment, that little revelation that clues you in to something specific within you and your suffering. And I guess maybe just the sheer volume that I've produced in these videos, I would think that anybody who watches a portion of them will at least get something out of them that they didn't already or didn't know previously or understand about themselves previously regarding their suffering. And if I'm able to do that with just even one person, that's tremendous benefit, and inspiring in a way as well. Yeah, I had an experience years ago relating to spirit. It begged the question of God, universal connection, loving, supportive energy. Yeah, that's actually a field that I'm sort of looking into beyond what I'm producing in these particular videos here, and that is sort of the realm of spirit. And I've come across a few books that have helped kind of explain a little bit about the spiritual world and how it can impact the physical and psychological world. Because in essence, as they say, we're all spiritual beings having a physical experience. And so, the physical is what's tangible. It's what we can see and smell and taste and touch and hear. Then we have the psychological world. This is what we feel and what we sort of sense in a way. And then there's the spiritual realm that some of us are a little bit more clued into than others. Some of us have, I guess you could call these abilities such as clairvoyance, psychic abilities. They can see spirits. They can see, auras, things that like that. And, that's fantastic. In a way, excuse me, I wish I had somewhat of those abilities as well, but I don't right now. Maybe I do, and I'm just not aware of it. But, um, but excuse me, But that's something that, man, that's an area of fascination because I think it can take suffering in what I've presented in these videos in a different direction. And so I'm going to be looking into that, and maybe it might um, develop into a whole new series of videos at some point later on this year. I don't know at this point because again, I'm just kind of exploring it. Man, my voice is kind of going today. I normally don't talk this much. But I think that can be very very exciting field to look into because as I've sort of learned thus far, um, being the eternal spirit, if you will, that each of us are, it really doesn't matter what happens to us physically and psychologically because really nothing harms us in spirit. Um, so, the spirit lives on. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. I apologize if I might cut it off a little short, but for whatever reason, my voice isn't cooperating at this point. And so I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And perhaps maybe not next month because I've got a lot of things going on next month, but maybe in the month of June, I'll have another live stream and look forward to answering some more questions and maybe asking some questions of the audience there as well. So thank you very much. And everybody have a good rest of your day and weekend, and happy Easter to those that celebrate.